Also that she had been forced to have sex with both her father and her brother, both of whom were then disappeared, never to be seen again, so that was literally the last time she ever saw either of them. But even with all of these abuses committed by the Pinochet regime being common knowledge, known and understood by any Chilean, Coach Red Pill still defends the Pinochet regime, thereby tacitly condoning such absolutely unthinkable barbarity. What a piece of fucking garbage he is.
The Facts Hunter.
After the death of Gonzalo Lira, a large number of videos have come up trying to glorify this grifter and Russian propagandist and turn him into something that he was not. He was a breathing, walking piece of shit, and he died because he was stupid. Now there's a movement created by pro-Russian propagandists trying to turn him into a martyr. So to help fight this movement created by the Russian Empire, I will be re-uploading some of the previous videos made by other creators, who back in the day were doing the same thing that I'm doing in this channel today, which is to expose Gonzalo Lira and to show the world who this awful idiot really was. There are multiple reasons why I'm doing this. One reason is because this documented data is becoming difficult to find due to the large amount of whitewashing material that the pro-Russian movement is putting out, which is burying the old videos, hiding Gonzalo's real dirt. Other reasons why I'm doing this is because of some of the comments that I've been getting. The comments I'm referring to are the type of comments that defend Gonzalo as if he was a good person. These comments apparently come from people that only know Gonzalo because of the recent war in Ukraine. These people live inside propaganda bubbles and truly believe that the Russians are the good guys and that the Ukrainians are the bad guys. So they believe Gonzalo because they don't know that Gonzalo has been a grifter and a propagandist ever since he started making videos in YouTube. Which brings me to the other type of comments that are the reason why I'm doing this. And the type of comments I'm referring to are the ones that accuse me of being a CIA agent who is trying to discredit Gonzalo. The type of people who make these comments are obviously paranoid nutcases that should not be taken seriously. But just in case some innocent bystander ends up thinking that these guys must be right because the material I'm publishing is new information that could have been produced by the CIA, then these old videos, which some are over 6 years old, will show people that discrediting Gonzalo Lira is not a new thing. This guy was an idiot grifter propagandist way before the Russians were losing multi-million-dollar airplanes and submarines to a country that doesn't even have a navy. So the videos that I'm re-uploading here are just segments of larger ones. The video segment that I'm re-uploading right now comes from a larger video called The Descent of Manosphere, episode 43, Coach Red Pill, by Kevin Logan. If you're interested in watching the original video, there are links to the original material down below in the descriptions. Please go check them out as the creators deserve to be credited for their work. So with that said, here is Gonzalo Lira, the hypocrite fascist who loves freedom of speech as long as it favors his agenda. And just a heads up, the material in this video can be disturbing to some viewers, so viewer discretion is advised.
Now, Coach Red Pill, like so many of his Manospherian fellow travellers, has one particular thing that he fucking loves to whinge about.
I think that there are a lot of people who are noticing it. But if you ever talk about it, you're immediately a racist, fascist, blah, 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 Hitler's, long-lost child or some shit like that, right?
Now, of course, the people who are denying race are saying that those who are race realists are a bunch of racists.
Because you can insult white men all you want. You can kick them to death if you want to, verbally saying, of course. But if you say anything about some other, like a lesbian crippled black woman, if you say anything about her, and especially if she's overweight, you're branded a Nazi,
A word of advice for you, Coach. If you don't want to be called a Nazi, how about you don't continue to spread a conspiracy theory, which was started by the actual literal fucking Nazis, you moron, and has been continued by neo-Nazis ever since.
It is the cultural Marxism that has permeated higher education. Cultural Marxism, this leftoid, cultural Marxism, the social justice warrior bullshit. That's the problem with SJWs. That's the problem with cultural Marxists. This cultural Marxism has metastasized to every level of government.
Yeah, and a quick reminder to everybody, if you think that cultural Marxism is actually a real thing that actually really exists, then you're a fucking idiot. But for all of the complaining and whinging and moaning that he constantly fucking does about people calling him a Nazi, there's nothing that Coach Red Pill loves more than to call other people a Nazi. Because he's such a fucking massive hypocrite that he loves to break Godwin's law at every possible fucking turn.
I tend to view the European Union project as the incarnation of the Fourth Reich, with Angela Merkel as the de facto Führer. But the leftists, the SJWs, take them as members of a group and they look down on those groups. That's why they go on and on about racism, because they are the racists. The European Union is falling apart. The European Union, everybody is realizing, is the Fourth Reich. It seems to me that the globalist agenda is the real neo-fascism that's going on.
Yeah, he is a fucking whoosive hypocrite. But for all of the things he likes to call fascist, there's one thing that he doesn't like to call fascist. That being the actually fascist dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet.
The Pinochet dictatorship did not care what people did, except insofar as it affected the Pinochet dictatorship. It didn't care what they did, what they said, what they thought. They weren't trying to control people. They just wanted to not have any political opposition to their agenda. Let me explain. Back in 1973, there was a coup d'etat. A Leninist Maoist regime headed by Salvador Allende was overthrown by a military coup, which implemented a series of economic reforms that created essentially the Chilean economic miracle.
Yeah, and what's especially interesting is that for all of Coach Red Pill's fucking rambling on about how much he supports democracy, the words he forgot to use in describing the Allende government, even though he described it as, Maoist and Leninist or whatever, two words he didn't add into that description were democratically elected. Yeah, he randomly forgot to mention that, it was a democratically elected government overthrown there. I mean, it's almost as if Coach Red Pill is totally full of fucking shit. And whilst we're on the topic of the Pinochet government and how it treated people, now it's time for a quick segment of... Yes, it's the inevitable bit about rape. Trigger warning. The upcoming piece has descriptions of graphic sexual assault. For those who might find this upsetting, skip forward to the time that is now on screen and you will avoid having to listen to that part. Now, what Coach Red Pill won't tell you, because he's a propagandist piece of shit looking to excuse away the crimes of the dictatorship, is that during Pinochet's rule, the use of sexual assault upon enemies of the state was widespread and systemic. And sexual humiliation was commonplace in many of the political prisons of the state's secret service apparatus, most infamously at the prison known as the Discotheque, also known as La Venda Sexy, which was a political prison just outside the Chilean capital, Santiago. It was known as the Discotheque because of the loud music that was blasted in the compound in order to hide the screams of the inmates as they were being tortured. Torture that included the rape of both male and female prisoners. According to the Valech Commission, set up to investigate the torture meted out by the Pinochet regime, most inmates were raped repeatedly during their time at the discotheque, with women being particular targets of this abuse. Many women were raped by animals, and even had spiders attached to or inserted into the vagina or anus. One woman who spoke to the commission said that she had been raped and sexually assaulted by specially trained dogs and live rats. Also that she had been forced to have sex with both her father and her brother, both of whom were then disappeared, never to be seen again, so that was literally the last time she ever saw either of them. But even with all of these abuses committed by the Pinochet regime being common knowledge, known and understood by any Chilean, Coach Red Pill still defends the Pinochet regime, thereby tacitly condoning such absolutely unthinkable barbarity. What a piece of fucking garbage he is. And even though on occasion Coach Red Pill has paid lip service to opposing the Pinochet government, as we've all seen now, he doesn't actually oppose it in the slightest, and actually is a supporter of it by way of fundamentally sort of propagandistic apologism. Also, Coach, your description earlier of the Pinochet government as not wanting to infringe upon people's rights as long as they didn't oppose the government is fundamentally fucking stupid, because if you are literally murdering people who disagree with the government, then you are trying to control what they're thinking and saying, you fucking dickhead. Also, Coach, why is it that you, as a supposed lover of free speech, seem totally unmoved by the brutal suppression of free speech under the Pinochet government? Because in your fucking kaleidoscope helter-skelter world, the deplatforming of Milo Yiannopoulos is an absolute travesty that can't be put up with, but the literal murdering of political opponents by Pinochet is just fine. Like so many of your ilk, these fucking freeze peach warriors, right? You're not remotely interested in protecting free speech. What you want is for far-right scum to be able to propagandise in public without any backlash whatsoever. You fucking lying twats. Anyway, let's wrap this shit up, because I'm so unbelievably fucking done with Coach Red Pill at this point. Right, fundamentally, Coach Red Pill is just an incredibly unimpressive person. And that wouldn't necessarily be of note in this series, because basically every single person I've taken a look at is incredibly unimpressive. But it's of note on this occasion because he thinks of himself as some sort of suave, sophisticated, cultured sort of guru. I mean, he literally calls himself Coach Red Pill, like he's going to coach and teach and be some sort of professorial presence within the manosphere, teaching these young men, guiding them in the ways of manliness. And his videos are just insipid shit. There's just nothing of any substance in virtually any of them. And also, one extra thing I wanted to note whilst doing this wrap-up is that in his video where he takes the political compass test, and by the way, the political compass is a load of old shit, but during that video of his, he describes himself as identifying as white. I mean, he says, I identify as white. Now, the thing is, right, Gonzalo, because that's his fucking name, right? And that's not doxing, he reveals that in a different video. Gonzalo, you aren't white, okay? You're not. You're Latinx, I believe it's described as. You were born in Chile. You're Chilean. And, well, obviously you can be white and Chilean. You aren't. You're Latinx, mate. And that's fine, right? Deal with that, come to terms with that. Because the thing is, these alt-right scumbags that you're chummying up to, they'll be nice to you in the short term because you're a useful idiot for them. But the thing is, at the very least, they'll kick you out of the country, regardless of what country that is, whether it's Britain or America or whatever, right? And that's the best case scenario if they get power. The worst case scenario is you'll be in the camps with me. So that's probably something we both want to avoid. So how about you stop? But with all of that said and done, there's just one thing left for me to say to you, Gonzalo, Coach Red Pill, go fuck yourself.